All right, guys, welcome back to the shop and this exorbitantly difficult off-grid conversion of my friend Stacy's Jayco Eagle travel trailer. We're converting this RV into a fully self-contained off-grid cabin by having solar on the roof and inverters that will power up the entire RV, including the ACs. When I last left you guys, I had just installed the inverters and explained the whole wiring situation to you. And then I alluded to this section over here going to be for where the batteries are going. But I haven't touched much about the batteries that we're using. And that's what this video is for. As I have explained a few times, the customer, who is my friend, did stipulate that he wanted to go with a 48-volt system for both its efficiency and, of course, the ease of installation. Now, most RVs, including this one, was set up with a 12-volt battery right there on the tongue. And that handles all the interior lighting, the slide outs, the jacks, the control circuitry for most of the appliances, and even the furnace. Now, 12 volt in RVs is more of a legacy from the automotive industry. They went with 12 volt because the automotive industry had 12 volt batteries. However, when it comes to more modern RVs with a lot of different accessories on them, including this off-grid system that we want to run the roof ACs on, 12 volts becomes quite a liability because 12.7 is fully charged, 12 volts itself, almost discharged battery. So there's only a little bit of voltage that's there to be used, and you can have a lot of voltage drop when you start adding more and more appliances and components. And while I would have preferred to just do a 24 volt system where I can use two 12 volt batteries in series to make a 24 volt system, like the bus conversions do and the motor coaches. But if you guys remember, I did just upgrade the house battery on my Beaver Patriot Thunder, a 460 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery from Vader, and I've been very impressed with this. With its Bluetooth connectivity and its simple operation, I've had no problems with it whatsoever. I was just going to do two of these and call it good. Casey had it in his mind that 48 is the way to go. Let's future-proof this thing. And he's been watching a lot of solar influencers on the internet too. But 48 volt, we'd have to do 4 of these. That's a lot of space to take. And trying to build a 48 volt battery system could be quite difficult with 12 volt batteries. Especially when we're talking about the travel trailer that has a little bit more confined space availability to it. Now, don't get me wrong, there's also other advantages. The most notable is that you don't have to use 4-aught battery cable in order to run high loads. So you can get away with the much smaller cables, like 4 and 6 gauge cables, which also includes the connectors. You don't have to use these great big ones. These get quite expensive compared to smaller ones, even smaller than that. So I do appreciate wanting to go a little bit higher voltages to give you a lot more leeway, a lot more weight savings, a lot more money savings, and more importantly, higher voltages can make the inverters a lot more efficient too. So when it comes to 48 volt standalone batteries, there's not a lot of choices out there. We're kind of stuck with server rack batteries or great big huge monolith assemblies that are supposed to go in golf carts, and that's not going to fit in here, and I don't want to even attempt to lift something like that up to put in here. Now, because I've had such a great experience with this Vader lithium iron phosphate battery that I put in my own motorhome, I, of course, naturally, immediately went to their website to see if they offered a 48 volt server rack battery. And to my surprise, not only did they offer it, but they just came out with a new one that uses the same footprint size as a normal server rack battery, but its nominal voltage is 51.2 volts. It has one extra cell in it. It may not seem that impressive, but I am installing 3 batteries, so that's 3 extra cells total. Now, a normal 48 volt battery system goes from about 58 volts on the charge side to about 40 volts on the low side. So instead of having 12.7 to about 11.8 volts DC available as far as voltage goes on a 12 volt system, we can go as high as about 58 volts and as low as about 40 volts. That's nearly a 20 volt difference. And this Vader server rack battery is 51.2 volts, so it's even higher than most normal 48 volt batteries. And while some might say it only has 100 amp hour capacity on this one battery, and 3 of them That in parallel is only going to be 300 amp hours. How impressive could that be when you compare it to the 12 volt battery I put in my motorhome from Vader that's rated at 460 amp hours. Since capacity is actually what we're really looking for when it comes to a battery bank, 460 is obviously much more than 300 amp hours, and that's only one battery, and I'm comparing it to 3 batteries. But let's not get lost in the weeds too much, because this is amp hours at 12.8 volts. What we need to do is figure out watt hours. And we find out watt hours by multiplying amp hours by voltage. So we have 51.2 volts at 100 amp hours, so that's really 5100 watt hours. We have 3 of those, which will give us a capacity of 15,000 or 15 kilowatt hours, which is substantially less than the 5,800 watt hours this one battery gives. That's kind of the magic of higher voltages. Keep in mind, my Leaf over here, its battery pack is about 24 kilowatt hours. So it seems a little bit strange that if I had 6 of these server rack batteries, I'd have more capacity than that Leaf electric battery. Now I'm gonna have to unbox this, and this is about 110 pounds, or about 50 kilograms. So it's technically a 2-man lift, but you've watched my videos, you know that I'm very stubborn. This is equipped with foldable handles, so we can lift it up pretty easily. It does have its own overcurrent protection right here, and basically an on-off switch. It's rated at 125 amps, so that's the battery off position, that's the battery on position. It has its own LCD smart display that you can turn on and see the state of charge of the battery and its capacity. So currently we're at 52%, that's how they shipped it. Voltage is 52.8, and you can see its battery temperature and its capacity right there. Over here it has the 2 lugs for negative and positive. Now that's 48 volts or 52.8 currently. With these, I wouldn't call them flimsy, but I'm sure those are easy to break plastic covers, but it does give some protection there. You can go to page 2, we can see a little bit more here. We can turn a discharge on or off, so it is a touch screen. We go to page 3, we can see each individual cell's voltage right there, and there's 16 cells it looks like. Back to page 1. So there's a lot of technology just built into the battery by itself that you don't have to worry about. Now this does have a smart BMS system on it. This does not, from my understanding, come with a heater on it. It does have low temperature cutoff, so if it does get too cold, down below freezing, it will stop charging. It does not recommend store this where it's going to get above 140 degrees. Now we can turn that off. You can also see it shipped pretty well. It's got this soft foam that's custom made just to fit the battery itself, protected during shipping. It also ships with the owner's manual, the cables to connect it, warranty information, and you have 2 extra brackets for the server rack. I don't know why they ship it with this, but they do, because you already have those right there. It's all encapsulated in the foam too when it ships. So it does have quite a bit of shipping protection on it, which means you shouldn't get a broken battery when it arrives. In fact, it's so well packaged that it can be quite difficult to unpackage. Like, really difficult. All right. Now, unlike a lot of other channels out there, I don't do teardowns of batteries because I don't have that kind of time in my life. I did check out Lithium Solar. He did a very similar teardown of this Vader server rack battery. I think his was a 48 volt. Overall, I feel like he was very impressed with the battery cable management inside and the BMS. He preferred a different app to use the Bluetooth connectivity for the BMS system than I'm using. But either way, it does seem like Vader did step up their game pretty substantially, and that's why I feel safe to put it inside my friend's RV. I do want to point out this is lithium iron phosphate. It's a chemistry that's very stable and not prone to start on fire or even sustain fires. And the case itself is made out of steel, so it can help protect the battery and the cells inside from any sort of punctures. The inside, the cells are strapped down very securely, and they do have some vibration absorption within them also. Now the overall dimensions that I have, we got 17.5 inches by 18 inches long, 7 inches high. Should be pretty standard server rack battery measurements. Anyways, look in the bag of goodies they give you. Like I said, they gave you 2 extra mounts. I actually am happy they gave me these because I need them for the installation. But there's nowhere to mount them on the back right there. So I'm not sure what it is they want you to do other than maybe you can use those to bolt together on your own rack. Otherwise, in the bag of goodies, you get the owner's manual and the warranty registration card. The owner's manual we will be using for later, and you get the 2 battery cables. Of course, these cables right here is why we got the 48-volt battery, because there's a lot of magic available here. Remember, this is rated at 125 amps as far as the overcurrent protection. So it's not going to trip until 125 amps are going through it. That means they could expect these little tiny 4 or 6 gauge wires to handle about 125 amps. So it looks like its maximum continuous charging and discharge current is about 100 amps. So 125 would be pushing it. And recommended charge current is 20 amps. Now on a normal 12 volt system, we'd be having to use some 3-aught or a 2-aught battery cable in order to handle that amount of current going through it. This, I can, with one hand, make a loop out of that battery cable, while this, it does not want to bend easily, and even to do that was a lot of work. And the terminal that would have gone on that 3-aught cable, it won't even fit on there. That's kind of crazy, the power of Watt's law, isn't it? All right. Another thing to be aware of is in the owner's manual here. Now, if you are going to use more than one of these batteries, we want you to do 2 things first. First, you want to fully charge each one of your batteries separately. Be a little bit tedious, but they do charge up pretty quickly. So in my system, I'm going to have to just install 1 battery, get the system up and running, charge the battery, and then move to another battery to charge it. Then connect all the batteries together, leaving them for about 12 to 24 hours so that all the cells can balance out. And then only after that 12 to 24 hours, it's approximate. I don't know if 24 is better than 12 or in between's a good idea. I would say a minimum is 12. Then once all the cells are balanced out, you're safe to use your system. Now, I wish I could give you guys a long-term performance review of these batteries, but this is my buddy's house that he's living in it, and he can't live in it until I'm done with it. So I have to get everything done and installed. So what I am going to do is show you how I'm installing these server rack batteries, because installing them in a server rack, which was my original plan, just turned into a big hassle. The idea of building a server rack right in here and manually sliding 100 pounds into this basement without killing myself or damaging the RV just did not appeal to me. And then building a server rack that's going to be able to handle the vibration and destruction of the front of a trailer on an RV seemed unlikely to me too. Now, I did reach out and I spoke to Vader, and they said without any hesitation, these batteries can be mounted in any position, including up on end, just like this, and they can travel safely in an RV. They assured me of that. And then from the teardowns that I have seen of these server rack batteries, they should be more than capable of handling this position too. Now, what you might notice is that I modified the flange brackets, so no longer do they look bent at a 90. I took a hammer and I bent them straight. Custom bends. Don't worry, I put my eye protection on. I heard you guys. Now, just using a little bit of my own ingenuity and my experience of what I see in RVs, I built a wooden rack for it. I looked online for other people's ideas. But for all the big proponents of server rack batteries in RVs, they don't really cover how to mount these server rack batteries. They have beautiful racks with wheels on them. You can wheel all the way around, but they're very quiet when it comes to installing these things in an RV. So here's my solution. Not too different than maybe a shipping crate or shipping pallet. I use 2x4s. That'll keep it off the ground so that if there is a leak in the compartment, the batteries aren't sitting in water. Secondly, it adds an air gap, so the batteries are going to be resting here and there with an air gap underneath, allowing pretty good airflow around the batteries. Now, my measurement should be almost perfect, so that with one battery, an ABS plastic spacer, we can do a second battery, another spacer, and then the third battery. Now I'm just putting plastic spacers on there because metal rubbing against metal seems like a bad idea to me. And this will at least give a little bit more airspace between the two of them, and of course prevent any sort of annoying noises or rubbing on the batteries. And I didn't point it out yet. Even though I have a 2x4 wooden pine base, I did add rubber isolator, and this is spaced up for a little bit more airflow too, and screwed down so the screws won't be rubbing on the metal case either, because it's in the lower part of the valleys of this rubber mat. And yes, this is just a mud flap. Don't forget, I am an RV tech, and I use what I have on hand. And it's pretty solid. It's got a nice core on it too. It can handle a lot of abuse. Now inside the compartment here, I mounted a 3/4 inch plywood. You can see I'm in the framing of the wall there, down below on the footer and the header of the wall there. So it's pretty substantial, and that gives me any place I want to mount anything into 3/4 inch plywood. And then using that same 3/4 inch plywood, which I put some RV specific, very common gray compartment carpet, I built a box to enclose the whole thing on. This is going to get screwed into that plywood on the sidewall, and this wraps around, and that's why I bent these flanges up. I can now screw this flange into this plywood, this flange into the other plywood that's on the wall, and then this front gets screwed down into the base, which is screwed down onto the floor, which should secure this pretty well, give a lot of easy access to all the connections and the screen, the battery disconnect overcurrent protection circuit breakers. And because it's 3/4 inch plywood, again, a lot more protection against any sort of damage done to a battery in that compartment if you're to push things against it. So it does isolate the batteries and still give a little bit of storage room, and it looks pretty handsome too. So that was the solution that I came up with. Your solution might vary, but I also think that it's an elegant solution because the batteries won't take up too much room in here. They'll be right on top of the frame at the tongue of the trailer, so it shouldn't cause any sort of weight distribution issues. Well, my favorite thing is that these side brackets right here, I was able to utilize some of the extra C-channel extrusion that I had when I built the solar rack there. All I did was rip off one of the legs, allowing me to have this asymmetrical angle aluminum bracket, and because the box itself isn't made out of metal, I think it'll reduce the chances of anybody accidentally shorting a wrench or anything across it if they ever needed to service it. The only thing I would recommend is Vader maybe come up with some flat panels to send out with their batteries also, because that seemed a lot more useful to me. Now, so with that place where I want it to be, back from that wall a little bit, so if they need to get access into there, they can. I'm just going to go ahead and drill some holes and then install it down with some 2.5 inch wood screws. Now with that secured to the floor, now I can take this cross brace out right here. Now, I happen to work with myself most of the time, but if you had two people, it'd be a lot easier. But luckily, I have some 1.5 inch ABS pipe laying around, and we're gonna go old school here. All this installation work isn't all for a loss, because at nearly $1,100 a battery, this method of installing them in a locking compartment should make stealing batteries a little bit more difficult. Now they might give me a discount code, and if I get one, I'll put one in the description for the video. But you got absolutely no pressure from me to buy. But it is my understanding that if you go directly to their website rather than any affiliates, it's a little bit cheaper there. That's what, vaderpower.com. I'm really quite tickled how easily the 1.5 inch ABS made this. I got the ABS sheet there. Bam. That looks pretty good. It's almost professional looking. Oh my gosh. I should do this for a living. Secure the stops down so the batteries don't slide around on the bottom. All right, let's get the box. It looks like I will have to disassemble it in order to install this, but that's okay. I'm an RV tech, so I made it modular and able to be taken apart, unlike the factory. All right, so now hopefully this should just slide in. Fit on top right there. Feed it in right out there. I mean, just with that by itself, I think those batteries are good. Let's secure those there. All right, now I just have to put the flange screws in on both sides. I mean, I legitimately can't move these batteries at all, but the screws there will keep them from bouncing out if the trailer does get a little bit carried away. Now with these last few screws I have to put in, the battery installation is pretty much done. Yes, I understand there's still a lot more to do. I have to wire everything up, but of course I will have to hook up each battery at a time to the chargers over here, get them topped up before I can actually put them in parallel with each other. It's got a 5-year warranty on these batteries, so we do have some time to test and make sure they're not going to have any problems. But like I said from the beginning, I got to get Stacy his house back to him, and in order for me to wire up these batteries, to test out these Vader server rack batteries that are 51.2 volts, I have to get the rest of this wired up. And I'm still missing the connector I need for there and there. I also have a lot of wide open space right here because there's going to be a lot of cable management I'm going to have to do. But luckily, with the 48 volts or 51 volts, it'll be pretty easy to run in here. There's even a nice grounding frame right above. We got 15 kilowatts of battery capacity right in this compartment here, and there's still even more room for other activities if we needed to. I don't know how much air gap this thing needs. If we needed to, we can drill out holes on the front of this panel right here, but definitely if you're going to be storing anything in here, I do want to keep my lower air gap open. Now, I do hope that helped you guys understand these Vader batteries. I do have one of them in my RV. It uses the same lithium iron phosphate cells as this one, same BMS, and I've been quite pleased with it. So I don't have any reason to believe that I won't have that Stacy won't be pleased with these. But with that, I have to carry on and put this whole thing back together again because I have other plans to do too. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you have any questions, put them in the comments or look in the description for any other information. Thanks a lot. Bye. This might be the legitimate first time something's worked the first time for me. I know, it's all on your phone. At least that part's working.
Okay, so this is my generator button. At least I turn my fucking.
It looks like the key fob I used on my motorhome.
Oh, Bessie. You get it, Bessie.
Come on, bring it in. What'd you do? There you go. All right, Stacey. See you later. You need me? What's the dog's name?
I always need it. Bobo.
What?
That's Bobo.
Bobo?
I've had him since he's 5 weeks old.
Hi, Bobo.
5 weeks.
What about this one?
That's Bailey.
Bailey or Daly?
Bailey.
Bailey. Hi, Bailey.
Hey, Bailey.
Such good boys.